Alô, alô. Agora, Rafa. Obrigada. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. How are you doing? Are you here? Are you asleep? Did you eat? All right. Welcome, everyone, to the BrowardSpiritistSociety. It's very good to be here another Wednesday. And tonight we're going to have Rafael talking about the spirits. Spirits is the title. This is from the Spirits book, part 1. But first, I invite you for an opening prayer so we can bring ourselves here, connect first with ourselves and then with the spirituality here present. I invite you to close your eyes just for a few seconds. Breathe normally. Feel relaxed, comfortable in this place where the subtle energies embrace each one of us. And as we support each other's heart tonight in this environment, let's remember we are beings of light. We are loved. We are connected with the whole universe. And there is absolutely nothing we can do that will destroy us, that will defeat us. Let's not forget our divinity, what we are here for. And that's why we come together here tonight, to remember all that. And to get the energy of each other and our spiritual family here present, and all of those spirits that came to this meeting. Let's take full advantage of of tonight's public meeting, the magnetism, the water, the letters, and everything that is going on different dimensions. Let's be connected. Let's focus on this moment. Let's embrace tonight's speaker, Rafael, with a white light, sending him the best vibrations. May he present to us his works, his efforts, and may we get out of here feeling even more confident and strong. Thank you, good spirits. We ask for your protection. So be it. Rafael, please come up here. Ooh, don't forget to put this on mute, otherwise it's going to be okay. Microphone. Yes. It's going to give a bad return for you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm glad to be... Oh, sorry. I don't know. For a second, I thought I was speaking Portuguese. I don't know. I just came out of the Portuguese study. And I don't know. I find it awesome, like in our brains, that we can switch that. And then if we're not paying attention, we can just go by it, whatever mode that we are on. But again, thanks so much for being here tonight. I hope that I can bring not so much new information, but a different way to look in there. So it's pretty much my study of the Spirits book that I want to share with everybody. So like Cynthia said, I'm continuing doing this, and we're going to talk about the chapter about spirits, and I had to divide it into 2 parts, but we're going to get into that a little bit later, because I like to talk about, let's see if it's working. And I don't think there's anybody there. Let's see. Can I have the battery? Oh, it's off. That's the reason. Nope, okay, it's working, yeah. I never noticed there's an on and off in here. It's good to know. Learning always. Okay, so I like to talk always about some details about the Spirits book. That the version that we have today, to the second edition, it pretty much doubled the size of information, questions and answers that were there. The first edition was 1857. The second edition, it's 1860. If you ever when you read the Spiritist review, you see some information that Kardec discusses it in the magazine for 2 years between 1858 and 59, that it's added to the second edition of the Spirits book. So it's fun I'm like, wait, I read this in the Spirit book and it's in here. Yeah, because that information was compiled in between the first and the second edition. So I found it really interesting to see that. And more information about the book, it's divided into 4 parts. Part 1, it's the first cause. I presented all those chapters from there in here. And today we're going to start the second part, which is the spirit world. And hopefully later on, I'll get to the third part and the fourth part, which is the ethical or moral divine laws, depending on the version that you get. Pachi actually did the presentation. I always talk about that. The third part of it, she has some presentations about that. It's really good. And then the fourth part talks about hopes and consolation. And like I said, today we're going to begin the second part, the spirit world. And the spirit world, it's divided into 11 chapters. The last one, I think, was 4 chapters. This one we have 11. It's actually, and one of them repeated many lives. There's a card that adds additional information about us, but it's separated into 2 chapters. But when I present it, I'm going to talk about both of them at the same time. So the chapters are spirits, the incarnation of spirits, the return to spirit life, many lives, the spirit life, return to the body, and then the liberation of the soul, spiritual intervention and in the incarnate world, then the occupation and mission of spirits, and the 3 kingdoms. Those are the 11 chapters that we have in the second part. And like I said, we're going to be talking about the spirits part, which is the first part of chapter 2 or chapter 5, again, depending on the version that you're reading. And in the chapter of spirits, it's divided into 8 sections: the origin and nature of spirits, the primitive normal world, form and omnipresence of spirit, the perispirit, different order of spirits, the spirit hierarchy, progress of spirits, angels and demons. This chapter, it's super long. It has, what was the number? I calculated. I don't remember, but it's from questions 76 to 131. We will be here for many hours. That's why I decided to divide into 2 parts. So we're going to be talking about the first 4 sub-chapters of it, which it separates nicely in order, so I like it. So for this one, we're just going to go from question 76 to 95, which are 20 questions. That's what we're going to see today. And feel free to raise your hand, ask question, add to the discussion, because we're here together. I'm going to bring a little bit of my point of view, actually a lot of my point of view because I'm presenting, but it's beneficial for us to just exchange that information. I think will be great. It will be great learning experience for all of us. Okay, so again, chapter about the spirits. Okay, so question 76. It's within the origin and nature of spirits. Okay, question from Allan Kardec. How can the spirits be defined? Answer. Spirits may be defined as intelligent beings of the creation. They populate the universe outside the material world. So what I got from here is that the spirit, it's the intelligence being in there. It's pretty much paraphrasing because it's hard to really say something different. But in here we can notice, again, because I know we saw before about the different elements of the universe, the material and the intelligent principle. And here again, we continue seeing that separation, that division. There's two distinctions, two things different in here. So we have the intelligent being and the material world. And the spirits are using the material world for their learning. So question 77, are spirits distinct from the divinity, or are they portion of the divinity called sons or children of God for that reason? Answer. Good gracious, yes. Spirits are the work of God, just like a machine is the work of the person who made it. The machine is the product of the person's work, but not the person. When human beings have created something useful, they call it their child, or creation. Well then, the same applies to us in relation to God. We are God's children because we are a product of the divine world. So in here, we see the third element. We have God as the creator, and then we are separated from it. We are together, we still exist in here. We saw that before on when we talked about the first cause. But we are the product of it, of God. Okay? And in here we see that we have that ability of creation as well. So we got to think about what are we creating? That's my question for myself in here. What are the children that we have? We're putting out of this around the world. So moving on, question 78. Do spirits have a beginning or birth, or they existed for all eternity like God? Answer. If spirits did not have a beginning, they would be equal to God. But they are God's creation and subject to divine will. It is indisputable that God is eternal, but we know nothing in regards to when and how we were created. So the spirits that answered, they don't know how or when we were created, but they know that we were created, creations of God, yes. And there's the difference between, we talked about it in the introduction as well, difference about the eternal and immortal, yes. Mm-hmm. So the eternal always existed, always exists, and always have and will always be. We will always be. But the immortal, we were created at some point, and we're going to continue, that's the case of us, the spirit. And again, guys, feel free to raise your hand and talk, because this is for all of us. Question 79. Since there are two, before I get there, did I move on already? I forgot to say that this is all within the origin and the nature of the spirit. That's the topic that we're discussing in all of them. So question 79. Since there are two general elements in the universe, the intelligent element and the material element, is it correct to say that spirits are formed from the intelligent element as inert bodies are formed from the material element? So we're saying the spirits were formed from the intelligent principle and the bodies are formed from the material element? That's the question. Answer from the spirits, obviously. Spirits are the individualization of the intelligent principle, as bodies are the individualization of the material principle. It is the time and mode of this formation that are unknown to us. So from the principle, intelligent principle, we talked a little bit more about it before in the previous chapters, we individualize. What it means to individualize in here, that was one thing that I asked. We don't turn it different. It's not that we turn it different. We are building within our experiences. So part of the intelligence principle, it's going to have its existence, all existence, because we were part of it. And then by our existence, multiple existence, we're being individualized spirits. We all have different experiences. Right now, we're sharing an experience, but there are several moments that we're not sharing the experience. We're seeing it from a different point of view. So that's why we're individualized. We make ourselves different. But we all progressing, getting, individualizing more and more within our own experiences. And the bodies, yes?
Would you say then that the individualization of the intelligent principle, that's driven by the will?
The individualization?
The individualization if each spirit is an individualization of the intelligent spirit. And you said as we grow with successive incarnations, we're building our individuality. Is that a result of the will?
Of our free will? Okay, so the question was if the individualization is due to our choices, the free will, is that what I mean? I think so. We gain that free will as the human beings. And we're going to see more about that later on. But we gain that free will, the choices that we can make. So in that process, I think at that point, I think we individualize even more because now we can choose our path. And at the same time, we're more responsible for ourselves, which is, I found it amazing that in the world. It's different from a plant, for example. In the plant stage, it's got to be at that place, subjected to the nature around it, to the environment around it, to our choices of what we do with it. So it's different. It's going to be, the individualization is going to be by the experience that it has in there, produced by others, that intelligent principle. But now, we as humans, we have that power, and we individualize even more in there. But the spirits, again, the ones that responded to Kardec, they still don't know how did that happen. Being consistent on the answers that we get from the spirits. So next question, 80. Is the creation of spirits continuous, or did it only take place at the beginning of time? Answer, it is continuous, as God has never ceased to create. So more and more spirits are being created. So I think about the expansion of the universe that we're, as intelligent beings, we are observing in the universe. For me, it makes all sense in that. So if God is always creating and the universe is expanding, I see a correlation in there. So we get more and more. Question 81. Are spirits formed spontaneously, or do they proceed from one another? Answer. God creates them as all other creatures were created by divine will. We repeat that the origin is a mystery. So we're not formed spontaneously. God created us. And then we just didn't come from one another. And in here, we can think about the children that we have, like the other spirits that come to us. We're all actually sons of God. We have the same Father. At this point in here, incarnated, we came from one another with the help of one another, but we're still all brothers and sisters of each other in there, including our parents, our cousins, our siblings. All of us were still like a huge family. Question 82. Is it accurate to say that spirits are immaterial? Answer. How could something for which no term of comparison exists and that your language is unable to express be defined? Can someone born blind define light? Immaterial is not the right word. Perhaps incorporeal would be more accurate. For a spirit, since it is a creation, it must be something real. The spirit is quintessentialized matter existing in a state that has no equivalent within your scope of comprehension, and it is so ethereal that it transcends your senses. So it's asking if the spirit is material. So the answer is in here that I got, it's we don't have anything to compare to it. And if we think about what we saw before about the intelligence principle and the material principle, so those are two different things in there. So we can say that one thing is matter and the other thing is intelligent principle. And when it talks about, I was looking for, we always talk about the quintessential word, and I've seen different definitions, but I went to the dictionary as well, a couple of them, to find the definitions that I heard before was that it's a different element, or other people would say that it's a more refined element of whatever this quintessential is. But on the dictionary, what I found, it could be two things, two meanings. One is an adjective that means perfectly typical or representative of a particular kind of person or thing. Or the second definition, if it is a noun, it would be something that is a typical part or pure example.
Could you please repeat that definition?
First one, adjective, it would be perfectly typical or representative of a particular kind of person or thing.
Thank you.
Okay, so for me in here, I want to emphasize in there, which is also said in the questions in the answer, it's a particular kind of it, but just like the Spirit's questioning us, we don't have the words to define it. So it's something that we don't have the ability to define yet. Just like we saw before as well, they don't know when and how we were created. I like that the Spirits will tell us what they know and what they don't know. So, and things that we can still discover. Make sense in there? Okay. Okay, last question from this part. 83. Do spirits have an end? We understand that their source is eternal, but we want to know whether their individual existence has a fixed term. And if, after a given period of time, the element from which they are formed is redistributed, does it return to the mass from which they were produced, as is the fate of material bodies? Is it difficult to understand the concept that something that has had a beginning does not have an end? So the question in here that I get is, if the spirits would just end, we as an individual, that individualization, we're gonna stop existing. That's what I got from that question. And different than the body, because the body will stop existing. We'll just redistribute, we'll go back to its source. But the question is, we, the spirits, will do it? Answer. As humans have limited intelligence, there are many things that you do not understand. Regardless, this does not constitute sufficient ground for rejection. Children do not understand all that is understood by their parents, nor does an uneducated person understand all that is understood by an educated one. The existence of spirit has no end, and that is all that we can reveal at this time. So one thing that I was worried is, like, me as an individual being, am I gonna stop existing, or am I going to go back, like, to, I don't know, us to get together, you know, after whatever time that it is? And the answer is no, we will still exist. We'll still have the individualized, we'll still continue to be the individualized spirits that we are, plus what we add on to ourselves. But they cannot reveal more than that yet. Now we're moving on to the second part, the primitive normal world. Question 84. Do spirits make up a world that is separated from what we see? Answer. Yes. The world of spirits or incorporeal intelligence. So there is a differentiation between the corporeal and the incorporeal life in there. Question 85. Which of the two, the spirit world or the physical one, is the principal one in the order of things? So for me, it's what's the main world, the physical or the spiritual world? Answer, the spirit world. It is pre-existent to and survives everything else. So the spirit world will still exist even if we don't have the material world. So there's a difference in there. Question 86. Could the physical world cease to exist or never have existed at all without affecting the essence of the spirit world? Answer, yes. They are independent of one another, and yet their correlation is continuous, for they ceaselessly react upon each other. So the two worlds, they interact with each other, but the main world, it's the spiritual world. If we think about all the other questions, when it talks about that the material body will cease to exist and go back to its source, it makes totally sense, this answer. So that's one thing that I like about this book. It's the same information. They agree with each other. A lot of the information, they agree with each other. It's not something you get one piece of information here, another piece of information here, all separated. There are several questions and answers in this book that they help each other, the understanding of each other. And I'm pretty sure when you go back and read the previous chapters again, you see way more information related to this than we're just seeing this little part right now. Question 87, this is a short part, the last question from the primitive normal world. 87, do spirits live in a specific restricted region in space? Answer, spirits are everywhere and they populate infinite space in infinite number. Imperceptible to humans, they are always beside you, observing and acting upon you as they are one of the powers of nature and the instrument employed by God to accomplish God's design. All spirits do not go everywhere, and there are regions that are restricted to those who are less advanced. Yeah. So one thing that it surprised me, but it still makes sense, that they calls us, the spirit, one of the power of nature. So we're not separated from nature at all. We're totally part of it. We think, with some of the actions that we have, we may think that we're not connected to it. The one hot topic that is right now, it's global warming, what we're doing with the planet. We are one of those forces. In the scientific community, they have a term, because we have natural selection as the things happen, and we'll modify it. Like going back to free will and how we change it, we'll discuss a little bit. It's all in there as well. But they named it now, the changes that humans do it, artificial selection. But if you would think that we are power of nature, it's still natural selection. We're all part of it. So 2 words for the same thing in there. But also brings us, when we talk about the free will, as Kara pointed out, we have that responsibility. So we got the free will, the choices, but we have the responsibility. And we're a power of nature, so we are the one responsible. We're actually talking about that in class today, that we are the ones responsible for it. It's not anybody else. We are. We are part of that world. And that also, which is going to come back on part 2, there's some difference between us, between everybody, between every spirit, that we're able to go to different places, which makes sense since we're in the process of individualizing, gaining with experiences. So depending on the experiences that we have, we'll be able to access something different. I know a lot of us here are immigrants. Think about when we're learning English, how after we learn a new word, suddenly we start seeing that everywhere. And I think it applies to this as well. Depending on the experience that we have, the advancement that we are, we're able to see different things. Different than people that don't talk about spirits, the spiritual world. We as spiritists, we're able to notice more around us than other people would see. Some people would call it coincidence, but we would say, no, we're a power of nature, so we are doing that. So we all affecting it, so we're able to see more. So not just as the spirits will be able to access other places in space, we incarnated here will access different information around us. They are there, but depends on what we know, we'll be able to access it. So I found that really interesting. So moving on to the next part. If you have any comment, question, raise your hand. Yes.
The last sentence, the restricted to just some less advanced, means they cannot go anywhere. Well, say I want to go, then I go. I cannot go.
Yeah. So that's why I said that part of how do we know this thing? I think we'll be more on that way. How do we know that place? How would we go there if we don't know it? How would we access that information? For example, right now, we're exercising our intelligence. We know that something else exists, but how are we going to get there? There's some advancement that we need to gain in our experience to be able to access it. So I think it goes beyond space and time, like go to a place in space and time to access even the information that are around us right now. Make sense? Is that what you wanted to comment to, Francisco?
Yeah, because some people, they do not accept that spirits can be restricted for some region.
Oh.
They go anywhere, whatever they want. Mm-hmm. But he says, no, they are restricted because they don't have the knowledge.
Yeah, that we're restricted because of the knowledge that we have. We're not able to go everywhere. Yeah, it's the same, right? I don't know.
Yes, yeah. It's like you can have like a spaceship, say go from here to Jupiter. Mm-hmm. You have no idea how to go to Jupiter.
Yeah.
You cannot.
That's a great example of an advancement. If we have that advancement, we'll get there. Yeah, true. Mm-hmm. Now for the third part of this chapter, form and omnipresence of spirits. Omnipresence means, there's two meanings in there. One that it means always present everywhere, or the second definition was found everywhere. Pretty much the same thing. So always presents everywhere or found everywhere. We can find it everywhere. Question 88 has two parts in there. Do souls have a fixed, limited, and unchanging form? Answer. For us, yes. But for you, but not for you. You can imagine them as a flame, gleam, or an ethereal spark. So I guess it goes again with that knowledge and advancement. For we're not able to perceive, we saw that we're not able to perceive the spirit. So for us, it's not fixed, it's not limited. But if you're in the same, for us, if I see you, like you right now, us, we all have a fixed and unchanging form. We're in the same level. But for them, which are in a different level, they have not fixed. But for them, because they're in the same level, they have a fixed form. So I guess it goes again with that. Like we can go different places depending on our advancement. We're in a different stage. We're perceiving one way. And also, for me, studying it too, giving a little bit of spoilers, the senses that we use to see each other, to perceive each other, is the touch, the smell, the sight. What are the other two? Hearing. Yes, there's one more. Anyways, we're limited to those senses. I was just thinking about this. We're limited to those senses. And as a spirit, we have more senses. So we'll see the expression of ourselves differently. And then there's a sub-question in there. Is this flame or spark colored? Answer. To you, it would vary between a dull gray and brilliant ruby, depending on the degree of the spirit's purity. So just like before with the different advancements, it can vary. You can see different colors for ourselves, for our perception. And I like that he brings it to all level of perception, the question that Kardec put it in there. So we'll be able to identify, if we pay attention, by the color or spark in there. Question 89. Do spirits require any time to travel through space? Answer. Yes. But their travel is as rapid as a thought. So imagine how fast do we think, or how fast some thoughts comes to us. That's how fast we as a spirit will go. So for me, like looking at myself, like now honestly looking at myself, how chaotic is sometimes my thoughts. I imagine if I didn't have a body, how crazy I would go. Yeah, touches me like, yeah, I would definitely go everywhere. So I see in here, once again, the importance of meditation, knowing myself, and be able to stop for a second the thoughts and direct them where I want it. So another blessing that I see as being incarnated. So it's a plus in that question. And there's another question that Kardec's complementing there. Isn't thought the soul itself moving from one place to another? Answer. Wherever the thought is, the soul is with it, since it is the soul that thinks. The thought is an attribute. So the ability to think, it's a characteristic that we have. It's not what we are. So another practical application of this. The thoughts that we have, and we see science today talking about it, it's not us, but it's what we do with it. But we will move depending on the thought, how we connected with it, based on the part before the question. So again, another great thing to have the body that slows us down, that gives us more time to direct that thought. And it calmed myself to know that those thoughts are not really myself, it's just a attribute that I have, a characteristic that I have. Question 92. Do spirits have the gift of omnipresence? In other words, can a spirit divide itself or exist at several points in space at the same time? Answer. A spirit cannot be divided, but every spirit irradiates in all directions. That is how a spirit may appear be in several places at once. The sun, it's only one body, yet it radiates in all directions, and its rays of light travel great distance, but it is not divided. So it makes me think of those advancements that we have, that we as spirits, when more we individualize, the more we grow, we're able to irradiate different distance and then be able to interact more. But it doesn't mean that we're gonna be split into two if we're doing two things at a time or being at two places at a time. But we're still gonna be ourselves. So going to the omnipresence, being perceived anywhere, we as a spirits will grow to do that. And then there's another question in there. Do all spirits have the same power of radiation? Answer. This depends on the degree of their purity and varies greatly. So that color that we saw before, it could be an indication of that variation. If dull gray, it's higher, we don't know. Brilliant ruby, it's higher. I would suppose that's higher, but we don't know. They didn't answer to us. It will be to us to judge when we perceive this, I guess, which will increase our individualization, which it's in that answer there as well. Now for the fourth part, right? Perispirit, the last part of it. Question 93. Is the spirit uncovered, or is it enveloped in a substance of some kind, as postulated by some? Answer. The spirit is enveloped in a vaporous substance, as you perceive it, although that would seem too heavy and cumbersome to us. It is sufficiently vaporous to allow a spirit to float in the atmosphere and travel through space as it desires. So here we get another element between us, the spirit, and the body that we have right now, which is the perispirit involving the spirit. And here it says that for us, we'll perceive as a vaporous substance. Think about, silly comparison. Think about the rain and the cloud. The cloud, it's formed of water. So, but there are more spread in there. And then we have when it's solidified, it's more defined, and we have the liquid, the water, in there. So for us, it will perceive like as the matter, as the vaporous, like that amorphous even sometimes. And then for me, that agrees with the answer before about this spirit. But the perispirit being in between the malleable of the spirit and the more fixed form of the body. But for the spirit, like I said before, the spirit will be able to perceive it as what it is. Just like we perceive each other as what we are, the perispirit will perceive the perispirit in the same level. Make sense in there? Yeah. Okay, question 94. From where does the spirit draw its semi-material envelope, the perispirit? Answer. From the universal fluid of each world. For this reason, the perispirit, it's not the same in every world. When traveling from one world to another, the spirit changes its envelope as you change your clothing. So the perispirit that we have right now, it's specific from Earth. But if we decide to go to another planet, we have to leave that body behind. Or maybe, just like when you go to space, we put on a suit, I would say, because we're still doing the same thing. And remember when we talk about the perception of it? So in a world, they'll have a perispirit based on the fluids from that planet. how would we be able to see from here in the other planet if we don't have the same material, the same conformation of material? So, and it agrees with other instances that we saw the spirit is everywhere. We saw it, that there are spirits everywhere. But since we can pretty much perceive when we're in the same stage, that's why we see a planet. For me, that's a great indication that we see a planet that there's no life. It could be an answer in there, which I think that's the answer in there. Yes?
Rafa, do you think that technology in more advanced world unfold those worlds? So just like the microscope we use here, we can see a world of virus and bacteria. Do you think technology will be able to unlock and reveal all those kind of lives eventually?
Eventually, yes. Think about it. If we can use that material, if we're able to harvest that material and use it, you know, just like the perispirit, it's between the spirit and the body. If we're able to get in that between, I would say yes. Does it mean that it's going to happen right now? No. But I do think that could happen. I don't know if it's going to happen with everything, but I think it's possible. There's another question in there by that part is when spirits of higher worlds visit us, do they adopt a more material perispirit? Answer, yes. They must close themselves with your matter in order to be able to enter your world, as we have already said. So for higher spirits to interact with us, they'll have to use the matter, the material that we have. So I guess for us to see them the opposite way, not advanced, but in the same level, we would need the material from the other side as well. And now question 95, the last one of tonight. Does the semi-material envelope of the spirit assume specific forms? Does the semi-material envelope of the spirit assume specific forms, and can it ever become perceptible to us? So if we can perceive the perispirit? Answer, yes. It can assume any form that the spirit may choose. This is how a spirit is sometimes able to make itself visible to you, whether in dreams or when awake, and can assume a form that may be visible and even tangible. So if that spirit decides and it has that advancement, they're able to interact with us directly. We're to make it easier for us to interact with them. But they do interact with us in dreams. Because of that answer, I think it's easier to interact them with dreams because we're in a different stage as we are, conscious being. But they're able to appear to us. And I think the whole stories of apparitions, or cemeteries or other places, haunted places, they chose to be it. And we have several scientists that did experiments with that, including William Crookes, other spiritist centers that they perform physical manifestations or physical mediumship, that they have that as well. So, interesting. And there's a Lais was the one that suggested that one. The book that is about abortion.
Oh, yeah.
What's the name of that one?
Luis Sergio?
Luis Sergio, yeah.
Luis Sergio. Let Me Live.
Yeah, they don't have a translation.
Yeah, they don't have a translation in English, but there's a part in there.
Can you get the subtitles in English?
Yeah, I don't know. There's a movie online. I'll see if I can.
YouTube. Oh, really?
Yeah, what?
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. The movie's on YouTube because I watch it on YouTube. Yeah, Let Me Live. Deixe-me viver. So, in there, at the end of it, the spirit is in an abortion center, and then they're following and studying this person's life, and then he uses his free will to interfere with the choice that spirit was going to make of doing the abortion or not. And that story, because that spirit materialized itself and the person saw him, he was responsible for the choices, for the things that spirit had to, the decisions, the aftermath of that decision of doing the abortion or not. That spirit was responsible to follow her and help her. So I found it funny, that was the first time that I actually saw on a different material than the Spirit's book, that the Spirit chose to do that in there. So I found that brought to my attention that then I saw in other books as well. But the Spirit used the free will to do that. I found that really interesting. And any other questions, comments? So that's it for tonight. I used the material from the Kardecpedia. I also have the physical book because I like writing. But all of this material, it's free online. You can just Google Kardecpedia. It has in several languages in there, all for free, including the Spiritist review, which is amazing. I actually do my gospel with it. I do one article of the magazine per day that I do the gospel, and I'm on the second year already, like halfway through. Actually, I just finished July 1859. So it's a slow process, but we're not it's a marathon. So I individualize myself more and more every day. So slowly. So, and it's all for free. You can all access it. There's no excuses. So thank you so much, and you have a great night. I'll see you next time.